This is interesting. I said this in I think it was my Premier League transfer window tier list thing. I think I said this about Liverpool that their signings have been amazing. Ekitike, Isak, Vert, Frimpong, Kerkez. These are really, really good quality signings. But you look at it as an overall, transfer and looking at the entire team as an overall, and it's not really filling in the gaps that are in the Liverpool team. You look at their back line. Apart from Frimpong and Kerkez, which granted they did need those two because Trent had gone on the right back position, and Andrew Robertson is not necessarily at his best at the moment, and Kerkez was needed. But the center back position, you can't tell me that they didn't need an extra center back. Van Dijk today was poor, and there was literally no one else that they could bring from the bench to play in that position. I'm starting to imagine what happens when Van Dijk or Konate gets injured. Who's going to play that center back position? And even at right back or left back, when Connor Bradley gets taken off, you're kind of thinking, okay, Jeremy Frimpong is going to be brought in. And I kind of understand as well why he didn't get brought in this game, because he's not as defensive as, maybe Arne Slot would want. But Szoboszlai doesn't make any sense playing that right back. You might as well just play Frimpong there and go, guns blazing and try and get a goal and try and outscore Chelsea. But Szoboszlai is there, and you're kind of thinking the amount of money they spent on Frimpong, he doesn't get a start in a game as big as this. Vert comes onto the field. Again, Vert is a good player. I'm never going to, go along with the people, the fans, the people on social media saying Vert is not a good player. Vert is a good player. But I think, looking at this Liverpool team, I don't think Vert adds anything to this Liverpool team. What I'm trying to say is, I think someone else, again, I don't know the options that were available in the market, but I think there were other options in the market that could have done a lot better for Liverpool in terms of being a backup player, being a player that can come from the bench and do something and build for the future. That wouldn't cost 120 million. 120 million is basically like three 19-year-olds or 18-year-olds that could come into your team and potentially, replace players that are good in your team. Look at Mo Salah's side, right wing. There's literally no one else. There's literally no one else that can play right wing in that team apart from Mo Salah. So if Mo Salah has a bad game, he's staying on the pitch for 90 minutes, which shouldn't be the case in a team that is trying to go for the title. There should be someone who should be coming off from the bench to replace Mo Salah and bring something different in the game. You look up front and you see Isak and Ekitike, and you ask yourself, do they need these two players? Their quality, no doubt about it, but one would have been enough. And the amount of money they spent to get Isak out of Liverpool, out of Newcastle, is absolutely crazy. Where you think they could have gotten a backup striker, someone who could actually sit on the bench for Ekitike, someone who could actually push Salah for his spot on the right wing, and maybe even someone who could actually push Gakpo on the left-hand side, for his spot. 3 players, I think, Liverpool could have brought in to push for these starting spots in the team. They could bring something different. Look at Estevao for Chelsea. He's a bench player. He comes on, brings something different, gets the goal for them. Chelsea could have easily gone for someone like maybe, I'm trying to think of a really good right winger in the league that maybe could have started for Chelsea. Let's say maybe a Yohan Wissa or maybe an Mbeumo. Chelsea could have easily gone for a player of his quality and brought him into the team and said, okay, you're going to be on the team. You and Pedro Neto are going to fight for the spots in the team. But they've brought in someone like Estevao who's happy to sit on the bench, come out from the bench, bring something different. And here we are in a big game, an important game for Chelsea, because they're 2 games without a win. And he comes off from the bench, brings something different, and here he is scoring the goal. And you're looking at Liverpool, the amount of money they've spent and the quality of players. Again, the quality of players Liverpool have brought on into their squad, to add on to their squad, absolutely brilliant. But in terms of depth, in terms of, overall filling in the team, it's not there. God forbid Virgil van Dijk gets injured. What's going to happen to Liverpool then? That's the question you should be asking yourself as a Liverpool fan. What happens to the right wing, the right hand side of the field if Mo Salah gets injured? What happens to the left hand side of the field if Gakpo gets injured? You have Isak, you have Ekitike. Again, I feel like they should have gotten one of them. But then again, Liverpool, I think this is a bad result. This is a very bad result. I think this is a game they could have won. I really think they could have won this game. Maybe a draw would have been, palatable. It would have been okay. But I think a loss, seeing as the form Arsenal are on at the moment, a loss for Liverpool is definitely not good. And coming up next for Liverpool is the, really, really big game against Manchester United. To be honest, we all know what Manchester United do in games like this. They turn up. They turn up out of nowhere and they play very well in these type of games. Although it is at Anfield and, people are going to say Liverpool are going to win that game easy. I don't think it's going to be that easy. I really don't think so. I think Manchester United might take that game very, very personal and they might, be like, this could be a good start to our season if we can win against the champion. So I think it's a tough game coming up for Liverpool. And again, the quality of signings, the players on the field, you look at Vert, again, for spending that amount of money on players and not getting instant results. At least Isak has gotten an assist. Vert hasn't had anything. He hasn't had anything in almost 8-9 games now. He hasn't had anything for Liverpool. So you're looking at that and thinking, how have we spent this amount of money on a player of the quality of Vert and haven't gotten anything? And why didn't we spend that money elsewhere where we could have spread it out a little bit, gotten some defensive players? I think Kerkez has had a horrible start to his Liverpool campaign. He has been really, really bad. I'm going to be real with you. Kerkez has been, I think people are focusing too much on Florian Wirtz. I think Kerkez definitely needs to have the microscope on him. Looking at his form at Bournemouth, coming into Liverpool, you'd be expecting he's going to hit the ground running. He's already a Premier League player, and you're kind of thinking he's going to get the numbers like he was getting at Bournemouth. He has had an atrocious start at Liverpool, and I really think, he's also a player that I think deserves scrutiny as we are scrutinizing Florian Wirtz. But again, I look at players like Jeremy Frimpong not getting a single minute in this game. I don't think he's injured. I think he played the last game for Liverpool in the Champions League. I don't think he's injured. And again, looking at the stats, I'm literally looking at the stats right now. Chelsea deserved the win. They played very well. I think even Garnacho should have done a little bit better today. He's on the other play we'll talk about maybe getting to the end of the video. But you look at the stats, it wasn't like Chelsea came into the game and defended, or Chelsea came into the game and they were a little bit pragmatic. They went for the game as much as Liverpool did, and I think they were the better team if you watch the game. So again, title holders spent the most amount of money, I think, in the entire transfer window in Europe. They were spending stupid amount of money, crazy amount of money, and you're looking at that and thinking, we spent this amount of money and we can't break down a Chelsea that are not on good form. We can't get results against a Chelsea that are not looking good at the moment. So I think that's a bother for Liverpool. I've talked about defensively how they look shaky defensively. Chelsea as well looked shaky defensively. But again, this is what's having squad depth. A lot of people trash Chelsea for the amount of money they spent on buying a lot of squad depth. This is what it gets you. This is what it gets you when you spend the amount of money Chelsea have spent on squad depth, not just signing 100 million players. I know Caicedo, who scored a goal today, 100 million, but I know he's looked like a 100 million player for Chelsea. Enzo Fernandez, around that same amount. These players look like 100 million players, but I'm talking about the surplus to requirements. I'm talking about the Esteval. I'm talking about the Gerald Hato, the Achampong. I don't know if Achampong is coming from the academy or they bought him, but the extra players that Chelsea have bought that have filled around the squad where they can have two big defensive injuries and still bring on players that can actually do a job defensively. That's something you need to look at. And I was thinking PSG have taught us, that football is not just about buying the superstar players. And I think that's a sort of problem Madrid, suffer with, but we're going to talk about that in maybe the Madrid-Villarreal match reaction if we do end up losing. Hopefully we don't. But it's something I was thinking PSG has taught, they've taught everyone that, it's not just about buying the superstars. It's not just about buying the big names. It's about buying a team. You need to have a team. No matter the league you're playing, no matter the competition you're playing, you need to have a team. Because once you have a team, You're not worried about a particular player not performing. You're not worried about, a particular section of the field not doing well because maybe you've spent this amount of money. Because everyone on the field, you expect them to play well. You would expect them to play well because it's a squad game. And when one particular player or maybe your important player doesn't perform, because it's a squad of really good quality, you're going to get performances elsewhere. And that's what we've seen from Chelsea today. I think Chelsea is a model that everyone really needs to look at and think. Compare it to what Liverpool have. Chelsea have spent a lot of money. Mind you, Chelsea have spent a lot of money. But you look at that team and you look at the quality of players they have, and even sitting on the bench, the quality of players they have sitting on the bench, and the overall depth they have to bring on players from the bench that can actually come on and do a good job replacing whoever they're replacing on the field. And you compare that to Liverpool, who don't have anyone. Salah didn't play particularly well today. There's no one to bench him. Van Dijk didn't play particularly well today. There's no one else to bench him. And yeah, I think that's something that they really, really need to look at. Van Dijk, Konate, I've talked about them defensively. Isak, he doesn't look sharp. I'm not really going to talk about Alexander Isak. He's a good player, but he doesn't look sharp. And I think as games go on, he's definitely going to get better. But yeah, he definitely doesn't look sharp. Good assist from him, but nothing really going on. Florian Wirtz, I've talked about. I don't think he's a bad player. I mean, he came on in the second half and instantly almost made an impact. I think Salah should have at least hit the target with that and maybe force a save from the goalkeeper. But again, Florian Wirtz is a good player, but I don't think he fits in what Liverpool are doing. For that price tag, first of all, for that price tag, he should be started. I don't care if Gravenberch or Szoboszlai or McAllister fit the system better. If these players, if Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch fit the system better, then there wasn't a need to spend 120 million on Florian Wirtz. If that's what you're going to tell me. So if you're going to spend 120 million on a player, he should be starting. Wirtz should be starting every single Liverpool game, whether he's putting in assists or not. Just like Isak is, Isak has been starting, even though he doesn't look fit. Wirtz, for 100 and something million, should be starting. And if you're telling me he doesn't fit the system, then why did you spend 100 and something million on Florian Wirtz? Therein lies the question. But yeah, a lot of injuries for Chelsea. I think going forward, the international break really has come at a good time for, Chelsea, and I think they're going to benefit from it. Maybe they get some players back from injury, and hopefully it's going to help them. But I think if you're Arne Slot, you're looking at this and you're thinking maybe we didn't spend as well as we should have in the in the transfer window. You're thinking maybe we should have fortified a little bit more in better positions because, again, you have players like Florian Wirtz on the bench. You have players like Jeremy Frimpong on the bench. These are quality players. These are players you spent a crazy amount of money on. They should not be on the bench. And if you're telling me these players don't fit the system, why then are you spending these amounts of money on them? That's my question. That's basically the entire question of this video. If a player like Jeremy Frimpong, a player like Florian Wirtz is not getting into the starting 11, even Hugo Ekitike, if a player of these quality and these transfer fees are not getting into the starting 11, why are you spending this amount of money on them? You're better off spending it on, backup players who would actually be understandable if they sit on the bench. That's my whole thing. If you spend that amount of money on backup players and they're sitting on the bench, it would make more sense that they're sitting on the bench. But you have Wirtz on the bench. You have Frimpong on the bench. So, yeah, I think it's something that Liverpool fans need to think about. And I'm sure it's something that Arne Slot is going to think about. But it was a good performance from Chelsea. It was a good game, actually. End-to-end action. No defending from both teams. No pragmatism from both teams. It was a very, very good end-to-end game and very enjoyable. Well-deserved win from Chelsea. I don't think it was lucky. I think the way they approached the second half soaked in a lot of pressure from Liverpool early on in the second half. And then they did well, going forward to get the opportunities they got. And I think The substitutions were very good. Esteval coming on, and it was a good goal for him. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section as usual. Any feedback from you guys would be greatly appreciated.